Welcome to Bits About Books, the home for conversations with authors of breakthrough books on sales, marketing, and business. I am your host, Shubhanjan Sarkar, founder of Pitchning, the next generation buyer-seller engagement platform, where our mission is to make buying easy. Our guest today is Geoff Burch, and we speak with him about his bestseller, Resistance is Useless, the Art of Business Persuasion.
If you understand the human mind, you can persuade anybody to do anything. There is no resistance. There is no resistance there. You can persuade anybody to do anything. And with that in mind, I used to trundle around retailers and businesses and just do these little talks on how easy it is to learn how to sell things to people. It's not difficult, but it does need to be learnt. It's not something that you can just fly by the seat of your pants.
Geoff Burch is one of the most sought-after business speakers and thought leaders in the world, renowned for his electrifying and humorous presentations that inspire real change in organizations. With a unique blend of sharp wit, deep business insight and charisma, Geoff has captivated audiences across the globe, helping businesses to unlock their full potential. His focus on sales, leadership, customer service, and change management has earned him an enviable reputation. Geoff is the best-selling author of numerous influential business books besides Resistance is Useless, Writing on the Wall, Go It Alone, The Way of the Dog, Irresistible Persuasion, and Self-Made Me. His books are revered for their practical advice, engaging stories, and humor, making complex business strategies accessible to all. In addition to his writing, Geoff has made many TV appearances, most notably as the star of the hit BBC series All Over the Shop, where he transformed struggling businesses with his dynamic coaching and no-nonsense approach, and is a regular business presenter on the BBC's Inside Out program. Geoff's contribution to business and management have been recognized with multiple accolades. He was awarded the prestigious Business Communicator of the Year by the Speechwriters Guild and was also named one of the world's top 10 motivational speakers by the Was Story organization. He continues to be featured amongst the top keynote speakers and business influencers globally. Now, on to this enjoyable session with Geoff Burch. Geoff, welcome to Bits About Books. I'm delighted with this opportunity to talk to you about your book and welcome.
Pleasure. Absolutely thrilled to be here. It's marvelous.
Thank you. When did you think that you'll write this book?
I never did. I never did. I'm a simple-minded soul, and I never. I mean, like all people. You know, when I used to sit and watch TV and say, you know, I think one day I'll be a famous author, and I never wrote anything. But this is all down to a sort of lunatic, basically, that the origin of the book are serendipitous, to put it mildly. I'm always starting businesses and running businesses and having disasters with businesses. When I was young, when I was younger, this was some years ago. And in the UK, there was an enormously successful kind of born-again, preachery business thing going on. We had 30, 40 years ago, we had this massive amount of salespeople who were paid commission only. So, I mean, a life insurance company would employ 10,000 salespeople, and they had no kind of formal training. They were paid commission only about it. And lots of people, and the government was piling money into people to start up their own businesses. So there was this massive sort of amount of people who needed to sell stuff and couldn't. And their only way of making a livelihood. So there were these people that set up in they would fill the Albert Hall in London, 20, 30,000 seat conference centres. And they would pay very big money for the tickets. It was like a rock concert. And one guy used to come on in a white suit, driven onto stage in a white Rolls Royce. And he'd come on and he'd held a skull. And he used to call this skull Yorick from Warwick and this sort of thing. And he would, you've got to sell. And they had full pages in the Sunday Colour magazines. Close that sale, come to the conference. And anyway, I have a friend who's completely mad, who is even more balmy than I am, and would have these schemes, these wonderful schemes. And he was watching one of these things, or we even went to one of these things. Somebody gave us some free tickets. And he turned to me and he said, Geoff, you could do that. You could do that. Because I'm sales is my thing. My dad was a psychiatrist. A miserable old devil. We'll talk about that later if you want. But he used to say he had escaped the Nazis in the war, and he used to watch the persuasive power, the subtle way they swung a whole nation behind them, And he said, if you understand the human mind, you can persuade anybody to do anything. There is no resistance. There is no resistance there. You can persuade anybody to do anything. And with that in mind, I used to trundle around retailers and businesses and just do these little talks on how easy it is to learn how to sell things to people. It's not difficult, but it does need to be learnt. It's not something that you can just fly by the seat of your pants. But, I also, Anyway, this guy said, well, you can do this, Geoff, you can do that, And I said, yeah, because he is an idiot. And he's also like cursed with this sort of thing. He walked past my tumble dryer one day, my washing machine, and it literally exploded as he walked past because he gives out this aura of disaster around him, So unbeknown to me, he went off and rented a theatre and started selling tickets to listen to the great Geoff Burch, who nobody had ever heard of in their lives, you see, and didn't sell any tickets. So he then started sending out publicity material to all the TV stations and everywhere else. And they all told him to get lost, of course, because nobody had heard of me. And this very, very prestigious BBC program called Midweek was supposed to have the Aga Khan or somebody on as one of their guests and so on. And this guy got run over by a bus or something in London. They're like a guest short. And so one of the researchers said, well, there's some lunatic who's been pestering us for this idiot, Geoff Burch, you see. And they said, well, whatever, if he's nearby, get him in. So I ended up on the radio spouting my stuff about persuasion and everything else and telling anecdotes and so on and what have you. And while I was on the air, the phone rang at the BBC and a very sinister person said, has he ever written a book? And they said, well, I don't know if he has. Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. You can ask him. Here's your phone. Anyway, when I got off the air, they said there's this bloke has left his phone number and says, if you ever want to write a book, give him a ring, you see. Well, there's a big industry here for vanity publishing, because they know that every sad, lonely person wants to write a book. So they write you send them any rubbish, and they tell you you're a genius, you see. And then you give them your life savings, and they fill your garage with unsold books, you see. So it is to be avoided. And because I'm a cynic, if I smell flowers, I look for a funeral, I just pocketed this phone number. And a month or two later, we were in London, and my wife, who is my ruler, my boss, my guiding everything, said to me, you've got that phone number. You've always wanted to write a book. Go and see what this bloke wants. And I said, no, I haven't got any money anyway. And she said, well, just see. You can see. It might not be too bad. Anyway, we found this address, which was in the north of London, so Euston Road, the north of London. We couldn't find this address anywhere. Just, oh God, it's obviously going to be some dreadful shed in a back street, you know. So anyway, we went into this enormous skyscraper and went to this very snooty woman at reception. And I said, have you ever heard of this publisher, you see? You know, Headline or whatever they're called. And she said, this is Hodder Headline House. And I said, well, have you heard of this bloke? And she said, yes, he's our senior commissioning editor. I'll tell him you're here. And we ended up in this palatial office with this person. And he said, well, you're going to write this book. And I said, don't know. He said, well, what's holding you back? He said, is it money? And I said, well, yeah, I'm a bit short at the moment. Yeah. And he just wrote out this check there and then, which cleared my mortgage, paid off my overdraft. And I left London with this vast amount of money. And my wife said, but you can't write. I said, well, okay. You know. Anyway, the time passed and we spent the majority of their money. And they basically threatened to send the boys round unless I produced this book. So I was locked in an attic by my wife with my crayons and my colour paper. And she wouldn't let me out until I'd written the book. That's how it happened, basically. Yeah. And it's, to my astonishment, it became an enormous bestseller and went all over the world. So there you go. So, I mean, that was, and that's how it got written. But just,
That's
I'm
a
more
great story.
astonished than anyone else.
This is great. So tell me, what did you do when you were locked in this attic with your colored papers and crayons? What did you do?
I put my pen in the top left-hand corner. This is advice to anybody who wants to, and I just started writing. And the first 2 or 3 sentences were nonsense. And then it started just turning into this kind of consciousness flow. And people who have the misfortune of enjoying my company actually said, do you know, I love your book because it sounds like you talking. It sounds like a conversation with you. And I just told the story of, from the beginning to the end, of the way you can persuade people, how you run a business, how it involves customers, how to get a better price, how to deal with people who don't like you, and so on, until it got to the end. And the end was, they wanted 40,000 words or whatever it was. And I literally was counting the words as I went, you know, and stopped at the minute I got to 40,000.
That's a delightful story. So tell me, I mean, obviously this looks like a very structured book.
Yes.
Your method was a flow of consciousness.
Yes.
So did it flow like this, or did you actually, once you had transferred your writing to the computer or whatever you did?
No, it didn't. It didn't really change that much. We had a few hiccups. We had the most extraordinarily weird lady given to us by this prestigious publisher, whose job was religious books. I'm fairly irreverent is the word. Yeah. So there was a few clashes there about, I like to write and talk in the vernacular, and she literally used to fall on the floor with the vapors. That's some of the liberties I took with the English language. But yeah, if you wanted to be serious for a moment, a sale has a journey, and the book has a journey that follows the same thing. I mean, I'm still working, even though I'm old and rotting. I'm still working because businesses still realize that they're not selling what they make. And with modern technology, it's got even more difficult. I mean, if you go back to our child, or my childhood, and so on and so forth, you could do this thing of scaling. What I mean is that if you made great cookware, if you made the best saucepan in India, if you invested $1,000 in an advert, you would sell 1,000 saucepans. So on each saucepan, on the sale of each saucepan, it cost you $1, but you would sell that. So if you spent £1 million on adverts, you'd sell 100,000 saucepans. I mean, it just kind of scale. You could scale it. You knew if you put the advert in the Bangalore Express, that the next day you would have enough orders to pay. If you got the advert right, you got the product right, you would have enough sales. So you had this scale where people didn't know you were making a product. You would put an advert, they would make this. But in the modern world we live in, people don't look at adverts anymore. We watch streaming TV, so there's no adverts on television. The sale of newspapers fallen through the floor. People just pick their news up from the phones. And I know there is advertising on there, but when was the last time you actually looked at one of the adverts that popped up on your phone? So my argument, to get to the point, is that there are strangers. People are strangers. So they don't know anything about bits about books. They know nothing. They've never met you. They've never heard of you. And you have to convert the strangers, first of all, into friends. So they get to know you, so they quite like you, but they haven't given you any money yet. And then you turn them into customers. And then you turn the customers into loyal customers, which means they keep coming back. So they're a great investment because they keep coming back. And then eventually they become past customers, which means they no longer do business with you. So turning the cost of turning a stranger into a customer, which is a journey, has grown enormously now. So that the customer has to be enormously valued, but also you need to make the very best from them too. So it is a difficult process, and it does have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So does my book.
Before we dive in, I have a quick question. This book was originally published in 1994.
Yeah.
So this is a good 30 years.
Yeah.
Buyers have changed.
Yeah.
The way we sell has changed.
Yeah.
Do you see what you thought of persuasion then and what you think of persuasion today? Has it transformed, or has it remained the same?
It got abandoned is what happened, is that people kind of gave up on selling. They kind of thought that the internet was the answer, the sales force, and then you've got all this kind of stuff, but at the fundamental basic thing, it isn't. It's about moving people. And the only thing I have genuinely seen is that more people need to move people. There's been this blurring of the roles. At one time, you had a heart of a business where there was manufacturing. You had management, you had research, and then you had a sales force who went out and sold it. You'd have marketing who found the strangers, and then you had the salespeople who would turn the strangers into customers. But what it is moving people. So you meet a person and they need to be moved. Now, people have so much more free choice now, more freedoms, less structure. So the people you interact with, they have less deference. So when you meet a doctor now, he tells you to do something, you don't necessarily do it. So your doctor has got a selling job to do. He's got to sell you the idea that smoking is a really bad thing to do, and he would like you to stop. And he really needs to get into a sales routine. At one time you could be told, people would do what they were told, and now they need to be persuaded. school children need to be persuaded that it would be better to learn history than look at their phone. So in actual fact, I've found that there's been a broader base of people that need to learn the skill of moving other people from one opinion to the next. And a lot of the stuff I abandoned as probably, I've suddenly realized that by mildly renaming it and customizing it, it's become even more relevant. So, yeah.
Okay, just to follow up on that thought, one of the levers, if I may say, of persuasion was the access to information which sales folks had earlier, which the buyers necessarily did not.
Oh, classic, that is. Yes, absolutely. Right? Yeah.
That is over.
Yeah. So
the buyer possibly has more information today than the seller.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with that. But that has often been the case, and that was often the mistake that salespeople made. The bad reputation that salespeople got was caused by the withholding of the little secrets they hadn't told you, like the guarantee that expired once they'd left your premises, or the things that the product couldn't do that they hadn't told you it couldn't do. I mean, customers are very well informed, but they're not actually. If you want to get ahead of your competitors, you need to find the problem that the customer hasn't thought of, that they think they've got it solved because they've studied this and they've looked at that and they've looked at that, but the person from the company, the expert from the company, should be able to find advantages and accesses that the customer hadn't thought of, consequences they hadn't realized, benefits that just would transform the whole thing. We want to buy your cotton reels. Sure, great. And I've researched cotton reels, and I know they should be 26 millimeters in diameter. We no longer made of wood. They're better made of plastic. We need to spin them at 20,000 revolutions a minute. Yada, yada, yada. Fine. We got all that. Yeah. And your competitors can do the same. Yeah. But also, Mr. Smith, in my research, I noticed you've got 27 factories all over India. Yes. Can all of the people who manufacture your cotton rolls deliver to each of those factories because they got a depot nearby? It's that. This is something you haven't thought about. Is access to spare parts, but you haven't thought about this. So I mean, again, it's about, and I suppose I've been ahead of the curve on that because, I've always felt that it's a very gentle process selling. It's not harsh. It's actually two people getting mutual benefit from something.
Absolutely. So it is not easy to be in that position, and it may or may not be feasible. So basically my question is that there are products which are commodities. You literally can't do much beyond, not do much. I'm saying, like, your example is a good one, that do they have a distribution shop to take the parts to your 27 factories easily? So that's one plus I have. But it's difficult to find such defined differences.
No, I know, absolutely. So, I mean, it can be about relationships and service and things then. People you enjoy doing business with. The tiniest little piece like that. And the trouble is with commodity businesses that they tend to take their eye off the ball. They don't look after their customers. It was an obsession in the UK about 25 years ago, customer service. The Americans were really into it, and we suddenly got into it, and everybody smiled and opened doors, and the customer is king and everything else. And then it was the airlines really that led it. British Airways were obsessed with customer service. They kept winning prizes for it and so on. And then Ryanair, I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but Ryanair, yes, the cheapest airline, and they make a policy of being awful with their customers. I mean, that their own chief executive joked that somebody said to I've never seen such terrible service. I've never experienced this, that, and the other. And they said to her, you're clearly new here. So they just went to the bottom on price. And they make almost a celebration of being difficult when it comes to the size of your luggage or where you sit or that you want to sit with your family and everything. And everybody else followed suit, but they were very good at it. I mean, I with my other hat, I help people start businesses. I mean, my other books are. Couple of them are about how you start a business and make it succeed. And, if you're going to be the cheapest, then you have to make a whole science, a whole business of being the cheapest. They are very good at being the cheapest. But being the cheapest isn't necessarily advantage. It's just that if you're good at it and you can pull it off, do it. But then the imitators are never going to be able to follow you because they're the best. I mean, they've made a whole policy of it. When you go on their website, or you used to press a button saying "book my cheap ticket." They're not messing about. They're very, very good at being cheap. So whatever you do, you have to be good at it. It's this professionalism, it's this skillfulness, it's knowing where you are. That's all the kind of key to this. And in a way, that question you asked me about the salesman having knowledge, that's how sales used to work. And the guy that sells the car that he keeps, there's a guy called Pink. I don't know if you've read his book that... to sell is human.
Okay.
Yeah. And he makes a big thing of this. But in a way, it kind of overcomplicates that. I mean, I was walking on a beach in the Caribbean. And this guy, this dodgy kind of street guy, he's trying to sell me a beach wrap. And he's saying, $20, man. Hey, give me $20, man. Hey, man, give me $20. And every tourist haggles with him. No, I'll give you $5. Oh, no, you're bankrupting me. You're ruining me, man. And in the end, they always settle on $10. $10, fine. And I met this guy in a bar, same guy. And I said, oh, you're the guy selling the beach wraps. Yeah. I said, be honest with me. What price do you need to get for these things to make money? And he said $10. He said, that's my price. That's my price. He said, I can't, I buy them for $5 and I said, would you like to double your business? And he said, yeah, sure, of course I would. I said, well, next time a tourist tries to knock you down, bearing in mind your real price, secret price is $10. Next time a tourist tries to knock you down, say, look, this is killing me. You're killing me. My kids won't eat tonight, but I'll tell you what I can do. You can have 2 for $20. That's half price. And he said, oh, yeah, all right. Saw him a week later and he said, yeah, you doubled my business. It's not rocket science. I'm not the sharpest knife in the box. It's very simple. And the number of times that I made millions of pounds for a chain of cheap restaurants. And they're cheap restaurants, but they're fine. They're great. Family restaurants. And the waitresses walk up to you and they say, did you enjoy your meal? That's their job. They have to say that. Did you enjoy your meal? Yes, thank you very much. And then they say, will there be anything else? And they go, no, that's fine. Can I have the bill, please? And I said, do you know, there's a thing in business called the alternative close. where you give the customer a choice. Would you like to do business with me, or would you like to do business with me? This is the other choice. Don't give them the choice of no. Do you want it or not? Well, I won't, Give them a choice which always results in business. Did you like the red or the blue? Would you like to take it now, or shall we deliver? Simple. It's old as the hills. It's 1,000 years old. And they say, well, how does that apply to us? So we get the waitress now. Did you enjoy your meal? Yeah, thank you very much. Would you like sweet or coffee? And the customers all said, just the coffee. So they started doing really expensive speciality coffees with Irish whiskey in, or Scotch coffee, or with whipped cream on the top. Special coffees, which cost more than the sweets in the end. So, but it made them about £3 million a year. Their sales went up. So at the top of my book, there's a lot of science and psychology, and that's great fun. But sometimes I just want to grab this guy that started this little business, and he's saying, not do it. Why don't you just get the customer by the throat and say, will you buy something, for heaven's sake? That's all you need to do. Ask for the business,
Right. And most of the time we don't.
No.
In fact, it coincides with a completely different thing I want to tell you about, and which I'm sure you know. One of the things about the whole startup revolution, which is apparently taking over the world, where 95% of them will fail, by the way.
Yeah.
The founders and the founding teams put off talking to the customer to the right at the end.
Yeah.
Which means they have an idea, they're building a product, they're doing minute things, but they'll not talk to the customer. Because then the dream may be over, because the customers might say,
no, they don't want to ask. The customer doesn't want to say no, and the salesperson doesn't want to ask. So they do this little dance. And I walk on stage with a club, and I say, well, any of you come back from a customer and say that you spoke to the customer and they were very interested, I'm going to hit you on the head with this club. Because they don't write very interested, they write V-int. Spoke to Mr. Thing. He hasn't been able to make the decision today, but he's V-int. No, he isn't V-int at all. This business about talking to the customer on the journey, one of my favorite business stories, is an enormous American corporation. We're into canned meat and everything else. They enthusiastically and excitedly saw the money that was in the pet food business. They really, so this is fantastic. So they decided they would get into pet food. And they got their psychologists to say, if you have a can that's small and squat, it looks like pâté de foie gras. It talks quality and price. Short, fat cans. You think this is a quality? And their other psychologists said, and if the cans were yellow and brown, these are the colors of quality and appetite. And it went on, and then they got their distribution. And then, anyway, $100 million down the line, the whole thing is like bankrupt. It's finished. It was a disaster. And the chief executive is speaking to their annual conference, 20,000 employees. And he's expressing, he's saying, we got the can right, we got the color right, we got the distribution right, we got the advertising right. What the hell happened? And a voice right at the back shouted, the dogs hated it.
It's time for a short break. Stay with us. After the break.
Where are you, Mr. Khan? Let me just take a few details. I'm Outer Mongolia. Outer Mongolia? Golly, that's on my way home. Look, I've got a tank on the transporter. It doesn't bother me. I can just drop it by and you can have a look at it. And now I'm in front of this scary man, in this case, Genghis Khan, who has been known to behead people and roast them alive.
You are listening to a Business Podcast Network original. Podcasting is the fastest growing content marketing opportunity, which is untapped. We can help you craft your audio strategy and help leverage the wide reach and easy streaming capability that the smartphone penetration provides. It is easy, it is powerful and personal. Talk to us to find out how podcasting can help you build your brand and reach out to your targets like never before. Write to us at bpn@bizcast.in. That is bpn@bizcast.in. Business Podcast Network. Podcasts end to end.
Welcome back. I'm Shubhanjan Sarkar, your host for Bits About Books and founder of PitchLink, the buyer-seller engagement platform. Let's dive right back into the episode where we left it. Let's go back to the chapters. I am curious about the second one, which talks about selling tanks to Genghis Khan. What is that about?
Actually, the Genghis story is key. It's about technology. We have fantastic technology, But Genghis is a 13th century warlord, right? He's had a fight with the Visigoths. He's been beaten. He's sitting in his yurt. He's watching the rain dripping on his shield. And you ring him on the mobile phone, because obviously, and he goes, "Khan, what you want?" And I always say to my audiences, because I perform the Genghis Khan story, I say to my audiences, what do you say to him? And the universal line is, "Do you want to buy a tank?" And I go, what? What? He doesn't even know what a tank is. But then I go up, but the Genghis story then takes a sharp turn, because the audience, I say, now we've got Genghis on the phone. And we've got Genghis on the phone now. And what are we selling him? And everybody goes, world domination, mountains and skulls. And I go, no, you're wrong. And they go, what? I say, no. What you're really selling him, your agenda on this phone call is to get to see him with the tank. You want an appointment with Genghis. Mr. Khan, you've got to see it. No, I'm busy. Send me the details. Send me a brochure. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Where are you, Mr. Khan? Let me just take a few details. I'm Outer Mongolia. Outer Mongolia? Golly, that's on my way home. Look, I've got a tank on the transporter. It's bother me. I can just drop it by and you can have a look at it. And now I'm in front of this scary man, in this case, Genghis Khan, who has been known to behead people and roast them alive. And he's clattering about all over the tank, opening doors, selling it. I've lost control of him, He's not logical. He's not sane. He's all over the bloody place, And what's this? What's this here? Oh, Mr. Khan, that's a 12-cylinder diesel engine. The German tank I saw had a 24-cylinder diesel. But Mr. Khan, you say, it's not about the number of cylinders, it's about swept cubic capacity. What am I doing? I'm talking to a 13th century warlord about diesel engine technology now, because I lost control of him. So in that story, there's little tips like, Mr. Khan, I'm glad you spotted that. And when you take delivery of our shiny new tank, our engineers will show you absolutely everything you need to know about that engine. But really what I want to know is, what is your problem? Oh, the Visigoths. Yeah. And then we go on to show how we can defeat the Visigoths. But the next step is, again, this is where technology people drive me nuts. You go to somebody who sells a computer and you go, oh, this is a great computer. It's it's very reasonably priced. Yes, very reasonably priced. That's my frustration. Can it do company accounts, right? So if you've ever met anybody from computers, they go, oh, yes, it could do it standing on its head. Company accounts, one press of the button, this little patch of software comes up called account software. You just click on it, put them at, it's done. Easy. They can all do that. All laptops can do that without any trouble at all. And you want how much for it? This one, $4,000. So you're telling me you want $4,000 for a laptop that a $200 can do, same job. Well, so I want to make my son, to my shame and my misery, became a lawyer. And we went to this place. It was like Hogwarts on the day he graduated law school. And the light fell in through a stained glass window. You could see the dust on it. They wheeled out the head of law in a sort of basket work wheelchair with a blanket over his knees. And when he coughed, dust flew out of his white hair. And he said, "You are all going to become lawyers. And as lawyers, you have a solemn duty to the profession. And that is, you should never let the clients see how easy it is." And it's the same with sales. Never show the customer that it's easy. The Visigoths. Golly. And what have they been doing? They've got a siege catapult. No. And they've been throwing dead horses over the hill. Oh, my God. No. And can you see the Visigoths? No, they're hiding behind the hill. Oh, Mr. Khan, that's terrible. So what's your smart old tank going to do about that? Well, I'm not sure it can do anything, Mr. Khan. I'm not sure. I've never seen a problem like yours before. But sit here, and have a look in the magic glass box. By the way, it's not called the satellite aiming system. It's called the magic glass box. Can you see what's in the glass box, mister? Oh, it's the Visigoths. Oh, golly, yes. Now turn this knob here until that little line crosses with that line on top of the Visigoths. You see the big red button marked fire? Press it. Boom! Where do I sign? It's the whole show.
Yeah, true. I mean, how do they sort of align what they need with what you're giving? And it's for us to show them.
And never make it look easy. Company accounts, golly. Have you got a lot of accounts? Yeah, I've got 1,000 employees and each one has a wage slip. Wow. That you do need some computing power for that. But you're in luck because let me show you, but not every laptop can do that, and only this is pretty unique the way it handles that, so and so forth.
Right.
Your comment about sales used to be about the word occult, as in black magic. Occult means hidden, doesn't it? As in occluded, and the dark art of sales was about the occult. It was about what the customer didn't know.
Yeah.
But I just think there's even more things we don't know now. And the customer who thinks he knows everything is probably the best. He's almost got a target painted on his chest. There's a joke in England that you ought to employ 16-year-old boys while they still know everything.
Right.
And I think it's the same with customers. They might think they know it all, but they probably don't. It just makes the job harder, but it's still going to happen.
Right. I know you have a bunch of chapters which talks about keeping promises and keeping the customers and welcoming complaints. These are all, I presume, are aligning yourself with the customer.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, you want a relationship with the customer. There's an old saying that you can skin a sheep once, but you can shear it year after year after year. There is a sales technique, and I go into it, where you don't really want to see the customer again. Maybe you meet the tourist boats coming into the jetty in Mumbai or whatever it is, and you sell them some shonky tin souvenir that would cut their fingers if they messed with it. You really don't want to see them again. You're not going to see them again, so you want to get the highest possible price and run for it. And there's a great number of salespeople like that in the UK that I don't blame them. And there is a different sales technique.
Sure.
But if you're selling a car to somebody, the car is going to make you many thousands of dollars. And if the person buys 10 cars from you, I mean, if a car costs $30,000, that guy's going to spend over £250,000 over his lifetime. So why would you upset him? Even if I talk to car dealerships and say to them, even if the customer is, when I brought my car in, there was an umbrella in the back. It's not there anymore. We're going to argue about that. How much was your umbrella? It was a $50 umbrella. And you're thinking to yourself, like hell it was. If it was an umbrella, it's one you picked up free from some exhibition, and you've probably left it at your golf club. But if you say, if the customer is trying to steal from you and it's not worth it, then you have to have the fight. But if you think if it's over a $50 umbrella, and this is a £250,000 customer, what happens in England? They go, well, if you're going to insist on the umbrella, here's the umbrella, now clear off. And you say, well, you're going to swallow it, do it with a smile. Apologize. Yeah. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But it's not like a store. If you'd like to choose an umbrella, we would be happy with our compliments. And please accept your last service free. In recompense for, mucking you, whatever it is. Because I don't want to lose £250,000 worth of business. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But again, it's only just starting to redone. We've done an orbit away from the customer can get stuffed. We don't want them anymore, to people realizing that it's so expensive to turn a stranger into a customer.
Yeah, absolutely. And once you have done that, you better latch onto it.
Yeah.
And ensure that that whatever you have done and invested in building that relationship actually yields value.
Yeah.
To you, and not get caught up in small, insignificant things.
I speak to businesses, and my hatred is these, that it's a kind of British trait. The person who says that he's tough. I'm a tough guy. Tough. Firm but fair, me, Geoff. Firm but fair. Carrot and stick. I use a carrot. I say, well, I've seen the stick. What's the carrot? Well, if they do what I tell them, I don't use the stick. They have the same attitude to their customers as well. And I had one of these lunatics ring me up. He said, I want you to do some sales training to my lads. I want you to train my sales force. And I said, do they not do? Oh, they're wonderful. They're wonderful. Absolutely. They only have to meet a person and they sell to them straight away. Everyone they meet, they sell to. He said, mind you, they need to, because people only ever do business with us once. It's like, once they've sold to everybody once, then they won't have any more customers,
That's true. So what is your final bit of advice in this book in terms of persuasion?
The book gets more complicated as it goes on, because I get on to the big sale. They're very, very, very expensive ones. And again, I use the analogy of a ratchet, a jack. If you have a puncture on a very little tiny car, you can pick it up with one hand, take the wheel off, put a new wheel on. That's it. And it's the same with sales as well. If you sell chocolate bars for 10 cents or whatever, if somebody came into my shop and said, how much are chocolate bars, Geoff? I say they're 10 cents. And the guy goes, oh, I'll have one. That's good. Okay. So that's a success. Yeah, it's a success. And if he says, how much are chocolate bars? I say 10 cents. He says, oh, that's too much for me. I don't want one. Then that's a failure. So it's very easy. How was the sales? That was a success. That was a failure. That was it. You get a guy who sells an Indian guy that sells hydroelectric plants, hydroelectric schemes to the Malaysian government. So how'd you get on? I saw the Minister of Energy for Malaysia, and we showed him our plan. And how much is it? How much is the project going to be? It's $1 billion. Okay. And how's it going? Oh, very well. Yeah, he liked the plans. We gave him a model of the dam and a picture of the lake, and yeah, it was very good. And how's he feel? He was very interested. This is where I crack him on the head with my stick. Because what happens then is you have all these consultants and this, that, and the other thing. And what I say is that it's ongoing with no measurable progress. You're just running on the spot. Where are we with this? Oh, he's very interested. They're going to have a committee meeting. They're putting it to the government, and then they're going to get back to us. And it's like with Genghis again, out of control. Where is your control of this? So we love your hydroelectric plant. Obviously, I'm just the Minister for Energy. We're going to have to speak to the Environment Minister. Okay. Do you have your diary with you? Well, yeah. Well, why don't we set a meeting? Why don't we fly you, your committee, and all the people to Bangalore? You can see our plant, visit our plant. Perhaps we'll go out for a nice meal and so on. You can bring the people concerned. And then once this guy's gone, you've got something in your diary for the next step. You know you're on this journey to success, inevitable success. And again, I say, if you get a puncture in a lorry, how do you lift it up? Well, a salesman would put a big pole and he'd have big muscles. And if he couldn't do it, even if the strength of his pushy aggressiveness can't lift the lorry, what do you use? A jack. So you click, click, click. Every time you hear a click, that lorry has moved. And even if you decide that you're getting a bit tired and you'd like to go off and have a coffee and a sleep, when you get back, that lorry is going to be where you left it, moving up. And that's where you need to leave the customers. Clicked up, the next one, the next meeting set. He's had a trial one. You've arranged to see him again in a fortnight's time. It's staying in control the whole way up. That's kind of the key to the book, that it shouldn't be a chance thing. It's not a performance. It's not a theatrical thing. It's a journey where you've dealt with the problems and concerns. You've anticipated them. And I suppose the final thing in the book is, once you've done all of that, the customer is like a tortoise you want to eat. You've got through the shell, and this is the time to go on with the. You've loved the laptop. You loved the fact that it does your company accounts. Now, if you link this to our self-replenishing printer, you got the whole lot, And if the guy says, no, I don't want a printer, well, fair enough. You still got the sale of the lap, but you might be, this is the nicest coffee I've ever eaten. Drunk, fabulous. Why don't you try a delicious piece of our lemon cake with it? Oh, I don't want to try to watch no, it's so light, we have to put a plate on it to stop it floating away. Go on, treat yourself. And at the end of the day, what would have been $100 day, even if half the people have said, no, I don't, it becomes $150 day. All your fixed costs are covered, all of your thing, and you've just pocketed $50 free. That was just about asking for the thing, but you have to do it in a special way.
I know I'm very intrigued to read the book because it was written then, and I'm curious to see how much of it still holds and why it's getting resurrected.
Yeah.
But one final question for you, Geoff, is that do you really believe that anybody can be convinced about anything?
Yes.
Is that a reality, or is this something as a wish that
I think because I'm, as I say, I'm the world's biggest pessimist. I've got a horrible feeling it's true, you know? It's always bothered me that the power to persuade is a madly misused thing. I think people who do sell and are trained to sell ought to have a license which can be revoked because I see these skills being misused and people being drained of their life savings, the cons, the fiddles, the con man, the guy that could sell you the Taj Mahal, you know. He's got it completely right. The only thing that is wrong is that he's dishonest. You imagine if that guy was employed to have some wonderful medical research he was trying to finance or something, you know, what a valuable person it is. You know, it's in the hands of the wrong people. Yeah, but little people that want to start their own little businesses, they come to me, oh, I don't want to do it, Geoff. I don't want to get into this sales thing. And it's like like they're selling their soul. And they say, it's not, you know. If you love what you're making and what you're doing, if you make the best cakes, if you make the loveliest coffee, if your dresses are handmade because you love the fabrics, you know, it's sad that your business is going to go bust because it shouldn't. All you had to do was ask people to buy things. That's all you had to do. And it's simple. It's not, I'm an idiot. And this is the simplest thing in the world to master.
and you'd wonder, really, I mean, as you're telling me, why people who are in that job, I mean, I can understand that if you're a machine toolist and you're manufacturing a machine and you really don't know, you don't have the skill set to sell. I mean, of course, there is this whole other conversation that, look, everybody's selling at some point or other. You're trying to sell something to your wife, to your child, and vice versa. And we are all doing some kind of sales, whether you should brand them as sales or not. Some amount of persuasion is going on all the time.
Certainly moving people,
Yeah, you're moving people, exactly. But people who are supposed to sell, why they don't sell or ask for a sale is a mystery.
Yeah. I in one of my books on self-employment, I create a mysterious building where there is a room with a little hatchway in one wall and a little hatchway in the other. And you have a job to do. Maybe it's to paint something red. So the one day the hatch opens and this thing comes through and you paint it red. And then you open the other hatch and you put it through and the hatch shuts. And that's what you do every day. You get hundreds of these things and you paint them red. And most people aren't inquisitive about where they come from or where they're going. And there's this thing called elasticity now, where in this world we live in, and again, is this book relevant now? The posh word is role elasticity. In one day, your employer knocks that wall down, and you can see the things being made. And somebody says, actually, when you're painting them red, when you're not painting them red, would you pop out and sell some of them? You go, what? No, I didn't realize that's what happened to them. I'll help load them on the lorry. I didn't know that was happening to them. I just paint them red and put them out through the thing. We had a big shipping ferry company. And the customers were furious because the ferry journey was early morning and it was quite short. It was 2 hours. And people would queue up for their breakfast, in the restaurant for a breakfast. And by the time they docked, they'd got through half the people. So half the people arrived and they hadn't had any breakfast. But they had a guy who stood at the front of the ship holding the anchor, ready to throw in the sea when they got there. And I said, well, why doesn't he go and help with the breakfasts? And it was like, well, we hadn't thought of that. Just like, you've got hundreds of people on this ship that's job only happens when the thing is coming and going from port. And then they sit and play cards and smoke whilst on the trip. Why don't they go and help with the breakfast? And I mean, yeah, there was problems with the unions and everything else, but they did sort it out in the end, that people love it. Another client I had, I've got to go soon, but another client I had a terrific shortage of heavy truck drivers. There was a terrific job here to get heavy truck drivers, and you don't always want them. So they have these agency truck drivers, and you pay these guys about $100 an hour just to get them, because they're we've got a truck and we've got a driver sick, and they on my suggestion, but the chief executive was as mad as I was, crazy. They went into the offices, the main offices, where senior intelligent accounts people sat with piles and piles of paper and adding machines and computers, and said, anybody fancy going to learn how to drive a truck? And hundreds of people, yeah, why not? And so that when they're short of a truck, they go into the main office and say, does anybody fancy a day on a truck? And yet they're buried with a stampede of people who said, yay, I'd love to drive a truck. Why not? And again, it makes life more interesting if you can kind of, that's why people be self-employed, but they kind of get blinkered.
Yes, absolutely. People, I mean, they're in orbit and they don't know how to get out of it.
No, not at all.
Bits About Books is brought to you by PitchLink, the buyer-seller engagement platform. PitchLink makes buying easy by enabling high-quality engagement between buyers and sellers through its presentation and discussion modules. Sellers create customized sales narratives using sales collaterals and personal videos, and reach out to prospects through a non-intrusive, buyer-qualified engagement. PitchLink requires no installation or download and holds the entire repository of sales collaterals and buyer-seller conversations. Talk to us to know more about how you can engage with customers without intrusion. Call us on 99021 631 32.
Geoff, thank you so much. This was wonderful, and I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. And I'm hoping I'm still recording you, so I'm hoping to sort of put you in a spot and say I'm going to have you back on the show.
Oh, greatest of pleasure. Yeah. Always happy. Try and stop me. That's the thing.
We have a great lineup of authors like Charles Green, Enrico Gallorini, Peter Cohan, Stu Heineck, and many more over the next few episodes, with insightful conversations on breakthrough books on sales, marketing, and business. Subscribe in your favorite podcast app so you do not miss a single episode. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for being with us today on Bits About Books, where we talk to authors about breakthrough books on sales, marketing, and business. We hope this conversation helped inform and motivate as we all navigate a rapidly changing business environment. For us, these are enlightening conversations enriched with knowledge and expertise. We encourage you to go out and buy the book to learn firsthand and implement some of the great ideas we discussed today. We hope to have you with us again in the next exciting episode of Bits About Books. If you liked what you heard, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast platforms like iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts from, and give us a rating while you are at it.
This Bizcast original podcast is produced for PitchLink, the next generation buyer-seller engagement platform, where the mission is to make buying easy. Hosted by Subhanjan Sarkar and produced by Rajiv Aditya. See you next time and have a wonderful day.